Hello, hello, hello. Alrighty. So, beginning of the stream, I already had one scuff, so that's good news. Good news for me. But hopefully that's the last one. Alrighty. Hello, Leaf. Hello, Astire. Hello, welcome, welcome. Let me know if either the background music is too loud or whatnot. Well, music. It's more like the river flowing, the ambience, you know. But we are going to be reading today my favorite novel, which is Modao. Um, so it's basically I can read the back of the book. I have it here. We do that nice ASMR tapping, you know. Ay, ay, ay. All right, so let me read you the back of the novel. In it's basically in honor of Pride Month, you know. I'm gonna read you a nice Danmei. Hello, Amy. You love Mo Dazushi too? Oh, Mo Xiang Tongshui. Yeah, yeah. Their novels are wonderful. I was so confused as why you were going live. Now the GMT was wrong. Oh, did I do the wrong time? I did change it. The stream was supposed to be at 4:30 EST, which I wrote on my calendar thing on my schedule. But I decided because it's more of like a bedtime, so I want it to be a little bit later on in the day. So I'm starting about an hour and a half later than I should have. Um, what is it in GMT? Is it like 11 p.m. now, or is it 10 p.m.? Hmm. You're collecting all the books, yeah. Yeah, I think I have all of their books. The only one I haven't finished collecting because it's not all completely published yet and out for purchase is Heaven Official's Blessing. Mm. But Moldazushi has been my favorite since 2018. You unlocked you deemed the eyes open. Okay? We're gonna have an eyes open today stream. I'm pretty sure my first ASMR stream was I had my eyes open, so it's like a theme now. Oh my goodness. It's 15 past 12 for you? Well, it's a good time for a bedtime story, you know? And it's 11 p.m. Well, that's me getting the times wrong. Okay. Well, at least one of us got it right. But yeah, so we're gonna be reading some Moldazushi. I got my water here. I don't know how long this is going to be, just because we're frozen. It's a weird face to freeze at. But my throat freaks out if I speak for a very long time. So I have my water here. I'm gonna be drinking lots of water, and hopefully my throat won't die. Um, but yeah, so maybe like an hour or two, depending on how long. I want to get at least 2 or 3 chapters done. But yeah, we'll go from there. We'll see how I'm doing. It's 1 a.m. for you. Holy moly! Yeah, you can read along if you have volume 1. You can pull out your books. This is now book club. Yeah, it's a bedtime story. Leaf is waiting. Leaf is waiting to get a bedtime story. You know. Your finals are Monday and you're scared. Holy moly! Well, good luck with your finals. Hopefully, you can relax a little bit with nice, some nice bedtime story. You know. It's not even like the best bedtime story, but it is the best story in my opinion. I love this novel so much. Mm. It has taken over my life since 2018. I have a lot of merch. I even got a Moldal Zushi bookmark for my Moldal Zushi novel. I also have the comics and little Figmas. Got standees. I have posters. I do love this story so much. The stress isn't letting you sleep. I used to be in your shoes. We don't like exams. Yeah, hopefully this will help you sleep a little bit. Or you can find your new favorite book, you know? You've never bought merch, the books are the first for you? Yeah, I'm a bit of a merch collector, I guess. I used to be a few years back, and I've kind of slowed down now. Just because I'm running out of space, but I love to collect things that are like from my favorites, you know? But, alright. Make sure that everything is here. It's all good. Good and dandy. I also have my reading glasses here, because I can't see. Wait, let's see if I can... Alright, my model still tracks me with my glasses on, so that's okay. That's good, that's good. Your boy can't read. Or see. So, yeah. I apologize if I stutter over some words like I usually do. Or if I mispronounce things, because this is a Chinese novel. So some of the names are a little bit difficult for me to pronounce. Despite me knowing these characters for however long. Oh my goodness, do I need to sneeze? Okay, we're good. We're good. I hope. No, I won't be reading it in Chinese, but I will be reading the English translation, but the names are still in Chinese. Yeah, my actual eyes are gold. The red eyes are just from my dark shadow version, a ShimizuDexx. The ShimizuDexx has red eyes. I have golden eyes. All right. So we got the book here. We got the book. My beautiful book. This is my baby here. Alright, so Moldal Zushi in English, it's Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. Moldal Zushi is much easier to pronounce and say. When I first saw your model, I could have sworn they were green. No, I've never had green eyes. No. Perhaps that was your eyes playing tricks on you. Yeah, I've never had green eyes. This is my original color. All right. Let's pull up my book here. I've got a book. I've got a book today. You're in your Delulu era. Yeah. Gone Delulu. Yeah, I've never had green eyes. All right, let me read the back of this book. Like I said I would like 10 minutes ago. Wei Wuxian was once one of the most outstanding men of his generation, a talented and clever young cultivator who harnessed martial arts, holy shit, knowledge and spirituality into powerful abilities. But when the horror of war led him to seek a new power through demonic cultivation, the world's respect for his skills turned to fear, and his eventful death was celebrated throughout the land. Years later, he awakened in the body of an aggravated young man who sacrificed his soul so that Wei Wuxian can exact revenge on his behalf. Though granted a second life, Wei Wuxian is not free from this first, nor the mysteries that appeared. Mysteries. English, I don't know it. That appeared before him now. Yet this time, He'll face it all with the righteous and esteemed Lawanji at his side, another powerful cultivator whose unwavering dedication and shared memories of their past will help shine a light on the dark truths that surround them. Holy moly. Will my dogs ever not bark? We never know. I'm not a book fan, but this story I'm already interested. Yeah, if you're not interested in like reading novels, there is the comic version of the novel, and there's also the animation, so you can read or watch the animation as well. It is an LGBTQ book, so Danmei is like BL in Chinese. So it's basically so two cultivators come together, and then at the very end they get married, and they're very much in love, you know. So this is kind of like their love story, but it's like not all a love story. It's very much, it starts off with a lot of cultivating demons and all that. Did this book have a coffin scene too, or was that just Tingguan Qifu? There is a coffin scene, but it's not with the main characters. Not really. It's with two other characters. But it's kind of like they're kind of like discovering the mystery. Yeah, we're LGBTQ plus friendly in this neighborhood. What's the full name? You mean the full name of this novel? Is Moldal Zushi. All right. We'll flip to the first page here. Mobile Zushi. No, it's a Mo-Dao Zushi. It's in the title as well of this stream. I'm pretty sure I put it in there. But yeah. All right. Chapter 1. Reincarnation. Let me grab a drink before I start. Very good. I'll do the little tappies. I love tapping. Can we have a book share in the Discord? Yeah, I should definitely add that. I think I have maybe a media share, but I can add a book as well. All right. Also, I have a fat crush on Lan Wangji, so just gotta put that out there. Lan Wangji, chef's kiss. What a man. Oh my goodness. If anyone knows anything about me, it's that I love Lan Wangji. All right, Chapter 1, Reincarnation. Based indeed. Based indeed. Rejoice, Wei Wuxian is dead. It hadn't been a day since the sage of the burial mound, and the news had already flown across the entire cultivation world as if it had sprouted wings. The speed was only comparable to how fast the flames of war had spread back then, if not faster. Suddenly, everyone, whether they were prominent clans or rogue cultivators, was discussing the operation of vanquishment that had been led by the 4 great clans and attended by hundreds of sects, both big and small. Fantastic, fantastic indeed. Who was the hero who killed the Yiling patriarch? Who else could it be? Ain't it his Shidi? The little sect leader, Jiang Cheng. The four major clans fronted the attack. The Jiang clan of Yunming, the Jin clan of Yanlin, and the Lan clan of Gusu, and the Ni clan of Qingui. I'm not sure if I don't know if I know how to pronounce that one correctly. Crushing family for the greater good. The destroyed Wei Wuxian's good old lair. The burial mound. I must say, well done. Someone immediately clapped and exclaimed in agreement. That's right. All well done. If it wasn't for Jiang Chang... Oh. My computer stutters. If you hear stuttering, it's my computer. Unfortunate. You're doing great, sweetie. Thank you. I don't know how to read. I also stumble over my words because I'm tongue-tied. So some words can be difficult for me to pronounce if I go too quickly. I try my best. Alright. If it wasn't for Jiang clan of Yunmeng, who took him in and raised him, then Wei Wuxian would have been a no-name street rat in the countryside. Never mind becoming anything else. The former Gen sect leader raised him like his own son, eh? But look at him, publicly defecting from the clan, making himself an enemy of the world. He embarrassed the Jiang clan and Yunmeng utterly, and almost doomed them to the safe fate of extermination. What do you call a traitor? Him. I can't believe Jiang Cheng allowed that guy to run amok for so long. If it were me, I wouldn't have just stabbed him when we first defected. When he first defected. I would have cleaned house. He wouldn't even have gotten the chance to do all those crazy things. What does a childhood friendship matter when facing people like him? That's not what I heard, though I didn't Wei Ying's demonic cultivation backfire, causing him to be ripped apart and devoured by the ghosts under his command. I heard he was chewed to pieces while he was still alive. Baddie Dex. A baddie? Does stuttering make me a baddie? That's what you call karma. I've wanted to say this for a long time now, but those ghost generals he raised were like a pack of unleashed mad dogs, biting people everywhere, and in the end he got bit to death himself. Well deserved. Be that as it may, if the little Gen sect leader hadn't been the one to plan the siege based on kneeling patriarch's weakness, then success would be difficult to guarantee. Don't forget that Wei Wuxian had his clutches, and how over 3,000 renowned cultivators were all completely annihilated that night. Wasn't it 5,000? 3,000, 5,000? They're all the same. 5,000 is more believable. He really is completely mad. He destroyed the Yin Tiger tally before he died, so he gets at least some credit for that. If that evil thing was left to cause harm in the world, his sins would only deepen. The moment the Yin Tiger tally was mentioned, there was a sudden silence, as if everyone was wary of something. A moment later, someone sighed. Man, speaking of that Wei Wuxian, he used to be a young master in an extremely affluent and distinguished cultivation sect back then. It wasn't like he had no accomplishments. He gained great success in his youth. How glorious and unbridled he was. How did he end up on this path? The subject changed and his voice were raised again in heated discussion. It's obvious from the case that the path of cultivation always followed the righteous way. The demonic path is only glorious for the moment. My apologies. You think it's good so You think it looks so glamorous. Look where that got him. Death without a corpse. A voice replayed forcefully. It's not all because the cultivation path. At the end of the day, it's still because Wei Wuxian was someone of a bad character. He roused the wrath of the heavens and grudges of men. You know what they say, what goes around comes around. The heavens are watching. Oh, thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow. After Wei Wuxian's death, judgment of his character was no longer refutable. The discussions were mostly the same, and any small voice of dissent was immediately squashed. However, gloom still firmly enveloped everyone's mind. Although the Yiling patriarch Wei Wuxian had died at the burial mound, the remnants of his soul couldn't be summoned. Perhaps his soul had been ripped apart and devoured by the... Flippy page time. Been devoured by millions of ghosts. Or perhaps it had escaped. The former would naturally be a joyous occasion for the entire world. However, the Yiling patriarch had the ability to topple the earth and move mountains and seas. At least that was what the legends say. It wouldn't be no great task for him to resist soul summoning if he desired it. My bird is playing with his bell. If his spirit returned in the future, if he took over a body and was reincarnated, then the cultivation world, the entire mortal world, in fact, would be cursed to face even greater vengeance, sinking into an endless storm of darkness and blood. And so when the 120 stone beasts required to seal a mountain were set down at the peak of the burial mound, every major clan began conducting frequent soul-summoning rituals. They all strictly monitored for cases of possession, sought far and wide for abnormal occurrences, and heightened their security to the max. In the first year, all was peaceful. In the second year, all was peaceful. In the third year, all was peaceful. And the 13th year, all was still peaceful. Thus, more and more people finally came to believe that perhaps Wei Wuxian had not been that amazing after all. Maybe he really had perished. Even though he had once turned the world upside down, there had at least come a day where he was the one overturned. No one could be worshipped on the divine altar before. Legends merely legends. Hydrate? I shall. That is the end of chapter 1. Very good. I got the bottle taps. Thank you for the hydrate. I'm gonna need it. Alright. So that was kind of like the prologue. Now, chapter 2. I find it funny how the wait for the loved one went from 5 years to 13 to 800. Yes, I know. Yeah, Hua Cheng is, he's waited the longest. And to be honest, he's dead, so everyone else is kind of still alive. I don't think they could really wait 800 years, but... Alright. Chapter 2. The Intractable. Wei Wuxian had only just opened his eyes when someone kicked him. A voice thundered in his ears. Playing dead? He almost coughed up blood from the kick. His head hit the ground, and with his face turned up, he thought hazily, "You've got nerve, daring to kick me, the patriarch." Wei Wuxian had already lost count of the numbers of years it'd been since he last heard a living person speak. Never mind such awful caterwauling. I don't know what that word is. He was dizzy. The cracked voice of a young man was rattling between his ears. Think for a moment whose land you're living on, whose rice you're eating, and whose money you're spending. So what if I took a few things of yours? They should be mine in the first place. Soon after, there was the clamoring noise of chests and cabinets, alike being ransacked. It was good. It was a good moment for Wei Wuxian's eyes could focus. A dim ceiling came into view, as did an unfortunate-looking face with a greedy glare. That face was spraying spittle all over him. And you dare go tattle on me? You think I'm actually afraid of you tattling? You actually think anyone in this house would take your side? Two large men, who looked like servants, came over. Young masters, everything's smashed. Flippy flip. So fast, the quaking and the quacking youth questioned. There wasn't such stuff in this broken shack anyway, the servant replied. The quacking youth was extremely pleased. He turned to Wei Wuxian, pointed so hard that he was practically jabbing his finger up his nose and into his brain. Go and tell on me, I dare you. Who are you playing dead for? As if anyone would actually give a crap about this junk and waste paper. I've smashed everything. Let's see what else you've got to go tattle on me with. Thinking you're all that just because you went on the cultivation sect for a few years. Well, didn't you get kicked out like a stray dog anyway? Presently, half dead, Wei Wuxian thought to himself, It's not pretend. I've actually been dead for many years. Who was this? Where was this? When had he ever done something like forcibly possess the body of another? After having kicked the man, ransacked the house, and spent all his temper, the quacking youth strutted out the door along with his two servants, slamming the door behind him. He ordered in a low voice, "Keep proper watch. Don't let him come out to embarrass people." The servant outside the door all heeded. Once the man had gone, silence settled both inside and out of the house. Wei Wuxian wanted to sit up, but his limbs would not obey him. So he lay back and flipped over. His head continued to spin as he looked at the strange surroundings, at the mess of the floor. Next to him was a copper mirror that had been tossed onto the ground, and Wei Wuxian snatched it up. A dreadful and pale face appeared in front of the mirror. Two large blots of red were smeared unevenly on each cheek. If he were to stick out a long and vivid red tongue, then he'd be in the very picture of a hanged ghost. Wei Wuxian tossed the mirror aside, a little disgusted. He wiped his face and found his hands smeared with white powder. Fortunately, it wasn't that this body had been born strange, but rather the penchants of the previous owner. A full-grown man with a face heavily caked in makeup and sloppily applied at that. This shocked some energy back into Wei Wuxian, who was finally able to sit up. Only then did he notice the circles of a spell array beneath him. The array was scarlet and crooked, seemingly hand-drawn, using blood as the medium. It was still damp, emitting a metallic stench. They were wrapped in crazed spells, drawing within the array that had been somewhat smudged by his body, but the remaining shapes and characters were gruesome in their evil intent. Wei Wuxian had been called by titles such as Supreme Evil Lord, the Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation, and whatnot for years. So naturally, he was very familiar with obvious devious arrays such as these. It wasn't that he had robbed anyone of their body. He had been offered one. The nature of this sacrificial ritual was a type of curse, The caster was to harm themselves with a weapon, making cuts on their body and using their own blood to draw the ray and write the spells within. They would then sit in the center of the circle and give up their mortal body to evil spirits, using the annihilation of their soul as the piece to summon a nefarious, malicious ghost. This was all done in order to request the fulfillment of a wish. Thus, it was the opposite of possession. While both were forbidden magics of ill repute, the difference was that the former was much less popular than the latter. After all, few wishes were so strongly desired as to make someone willingly sacrifice everything they had. This was why the technique had been nearly lost after centuries of disuse. Disuse? Oh my goodness. Disuse, there we go. Centuries of disuse. The examples recorded in ancient books had only a handful of cases that were backed by reliable evidence, and every single one of them had been for revenge. Every malicious ghost summoned by the ritual had fulfilled the caster's wishes, and perfectly, in cruel and bloody ways. Wei Wuxian refused to accept this. Since when was he categorized as a nefarious, malicious ghost? While he had a fairly poor reputation and died extremely tragic death, he didn't haunt the living for one, and he'd never sought vengeance for two. He could swear there was not a single wandering ghost in this world who had more decent and honest than he. But the tough thing was, the sacrificial ritual following the will of the caster first and foremost. So it didn't matter how much he objected, he was already inside this body, which was a silent acknowledgement that both parties had formed a contract. He had to fulfill the wish of the caster, or the curse would be rebound, destroying the possessor's primordial spirit and extinguishing it forever. Wei Wuxian yanked his sash loose and raised his arm to inspect them. Sure enough, both of his wrists were slashed with a sharp tool, leaving them covered in crisscrossing lacerations. The bleeding had already stopped, but Wei Wuxian knew that there was no normal injuries. If he didn't fulfill the caster's wish, then these wounds would be unable to heal, and they would worsen the longer this dragged on. If the deadline for fulfillment was missing, then he would have accepted the vessel. This vessel would be ripped apart in both body and soul alike. Let me grab a drink. Very good. Page flippy time. He triple-checked that there was no mistakes and cried, "This is ridiculous," mentally 10 times before finally rising to his feet with difficulty, supporting himself against the wall. This house certainly was big, but it was empty and shabby. The bedding was emitting a sour smell. He knew who knew how many days had gone by since it was last changed. There was a bamboo basket for trash in the corner and had been kicked over earlier, and both trash and waste paper were strewn across the floor. Wei Wuxian noticed there seemed to be ink marks on the crumpled papers, so he picked up one in the passing. He opened it to take a look, and sure enough, it was covered in words. He quickly went around to collect all the balls of paper. These were probably written by the owner of this body to vent his frustrations. Some of the sentences were incoherent and disordered, but the anxiety and nervousness were abundantly clear. Wei Wuxian patiently examined each sheet, and the more he looked, the more he felt something was amiss. Through some guesswork, he figured out a few things. First, the owner of this body was named Mo Xuanyu, and this place was called Mo Estate. Mo Xuanyu's grandfather and his mother's on his mother's side was from a rich family in this area. The family wasn't large, and the man was not fated for a son. After years of trying, he still only had 2 daughters. The name of the second daughter wasn't mentioned, but either way, the eldest daughter was born of the lawful wife. Thus, they were looking for a husband to marry into their family name. Though the second daughter was exceptional in appearance, she was born of a servant, which was why the Mo family had originally planned to marry her out without giving much thought to the groom. Who wouldn't have thought she was a fate for a fortuitous encounter? When she was 16, the head of prominent clan was passing by and fell in love with her at first sight. The two made the Mo manor and the site of their ravenous and a year later, the second daughter gave birth to a son. This was Mo Shanyu. The inhabitants of the Mo estate would normally have held such an event in contempt, but people at the time worshipped cultivators. In the eyes of the mundane folk, cultivation clans that pursued immortality were loved by the heavens, mysterious and noble. Furthermore, the prominent clan leader would financially support this new outer family branch of his every so often. So naturally, these circumstances were special. Not only did the Mo family consider this an honor, but others were extremely envious too. However, the good days did not last. The wandering clan leader was only hungry for the novelty of fresh meat, and he was over it after 2 years, coming to visit less and less frequently. After Mo Shanyi turned 4, the man never appeared again. In those passing years, the Mo estate's opinion changed again. The contempt of mockery returned, now with adding disdain and pity. Second Lady Mo refused to accept this, believing firmly that the prominent clan leader would not turn a blind eye to his own son. And sure enough, Mo Shanyi turned 14. That clan leader sent over a grand party to officially take him back. Second Lady Mo's head was held high again, although she could not go with them. This event swept away all the grievance she had. Feeling proud and elevated, she proclaimed proudly to everyone she saw that her son would definitely become a leader of cultivation sect in the future, rise to the top and bring glory to the ancestors. Thus the people of the Mo estate changed their opinion for the 3rd time. However, Mo Shanyu was driven out before he managed to cultivate, claim, and succeed his father, and driven out in the most shameful way. Mo Shanyu was cut sleeve, a male homosexual, and was so audacious as to harass his fellow peers. With this scandal exposed and the fact that he possessed only average talent and no real achievements in cultivation, the sect had no reason to keep him. Adding frost to snow, something had upset Mo Shanyu. When he returned home, it was as a madman. His mental state had been upended, as if he had been scared silly. Having read to this point, Wei Wuxian's brow twitched a couple of times. Let me grab another drink before I start to lose my voice. I have a very sensitive voice. Which is probably why I can't go for too long, but we're trying. The cut sleeve matter aside, the man was a lunatic too. No wonder he had smeared enough powder on his face to look like a hanged ghost. Yes, I shall drink. I got my big water bottle this time. Even bigger than the one I usually have. No wonder no one thought it strange that there was such a large bloody spell arrayed on the ground. Mo Shanyu could probably smear blood all over this house, from the floor tiles up to the walls and to the ceiling, and no one would think it's weird, because everyone knew he was crazy. Mo Shanyu returned to his old home. He was bombarded with ridicule. This time it seemed the situation was unsalvageable. Unable to take this blow, Second Lady Mo was choked to death by her own unappeasable outrage. At this time, Mo Shanyu's grandfather had already passed, and the one managing the house was First Lady Mo. This Madame Mo had never been able to stand her little sister, and she scorned the sister's bastard son. She had a single son herself by the name of Mo Ziyuan, the one who had just ransacked Mo Shuyan's house. Shanyu can't see. When Mo Shanyu first left with such impressive fanfare, First Lady Mo had felt that they now possessed something of a family tie to that prominent cultivation sect, and had hoped the cultivator envoys would bring Mo Ziyuan's along with them too. Of course, she had been rejected, or rather ignored. Duh. This wasn't like selling cabbage in the markets. Buy one, get one free. Who knew? I love this story. Who knew who knew this family got its confidence? But they all possessed a bizarre idea. They firmly believed that Mo Ziyuan had potential, that he had talent, and that if he were the one who had gone with the cultivators, then he would have been recognized for his worth for sure, unlike his failure of a cousin. Although Mo Ziyuan had been young when Mo Xuanyu left, he had been repeatedly indoctrinated to believe this nonsense without a single doubt. Thus he had caught Mo Xuanyu every other day to humiliate him, cursing him for having robbed him of his path to cultivation. Yet he remained enamored. Look at these words. Enamored? Oh my. With the talismans, the pills, and the little spiritual devices that had been brought back from the cultivation sect, and would take them all for himself, breaking them as he willed. While Mo Xianyu was often in the throes of madness, he knew when he was being humiliated. He tried his best to endure it time and time again, but Mo Ziyuan's behavior only worsened, practically emptying the entire house. At last, Mo Shanyu had enough. He finally stammered and complained to his uncle and aunt, which was why Mo Ziyuan had come knocking today, looking for trouble. The words on the paper were tiny and cramped. Wei Wuxian's eyes were sore from reading all this, and thought to himself, what kind of hellish life was he fucking living? No wonder Mo Xuanyu had preferred to end it, offering his body to summon malicious goats to avenge him. Hello. You're heading to bed now? No worries. Sweet dreams. Have a good night. After his eyeballs started feeling better, it became his head's turn to ache. Technically, the caster of the array had to mentally recite their wishes. As the evil spirits summoned, Wei Wuxian should have been able to hear the details of his request. However, this forbidden magic forbidden magic had probably been secretly copied off a book with missing flippy time, with missing pages. It was incomplete, and Mo Xuanyu had missed that step. Although Wei Wuxian could guess that he was most likely sought vengeance against the Mo family, how exactly did he want it done? To what extent? Take back what was taken? Beat up the family? Or wipe them out entirely? It was mostly likely wiping out the family, eh? After all, anyone who had been in the cultivation world would know the word most often used to describe Wei Wuxian: treacherous, mad. After all, anyone who had been in the cultivation world... Oh, I already read that part. My apologies. Treacherous and mad. Was there anyone who had better fit the description of fiendish? Since the man who had dared to summon him by name, his wish was definitely not something easily granted. Wei Wuxian said helplessly, "But you've got the wrong person." At first he wanted to wash his face and gaze with reverence upon the dead. Countenance? That had once belonged to his former owner. Put some emotion into it, it's supposed to be soft. Soft. I'm reading softly. I don't want to go too crazy. Alright, where was I? However, there was no water inside this house. Not even drinking water. What's more, Wei Wuxian figured the only counter around was for lavatory purposes and not for washing up. He tried pushing the door, but it was barred from the outside, probably to prevent him... Oh, sorry, barred? From the outside, probably to prevent him from running amok. There was not a single thing that could allow him the slightest bit of joy in being reincarnated. He might as well meditate for a while and get used to the new body. The entire day passed this way. When he opened his eyes once more, there was sunlight seeping into the house, through the cracks of the window. Although he could get up and walk, his head was still spinning, and it didn't appear to be getting bigger. Or better, it didn't appear to be getting bigger. Yeah, we're reading softly today. In a monotone kind of way, I guess. Wei Wuxian was puzzled. This Mo Xuanyu's cultivation spiritual power is so minuscule, it might be completely overlooked. There's no reason why I can't manipulate this body. So why is it so difficult to use? Let me grab a drink again. I have an accent? I think my accent is caused by my tongue-tiedness. I'm a bit of a mix of a lot of things. But I was basically taught English by non-English speakers. But I'm a mix of like a lot of like European and all that. But yeah, a lot of my, I guess, accent you could say is caused by my tongue-tiedness. All right. Next page. It wasn't until a strange noise sounded from his stomach that he realized it had nothing to do with spiritual power. It was simply that this body, not trained for fasting, was hungry. If he delayed seeking food any longer, he might just become the first malicious ghost in history to die of hunger immediately after being summoned. You can hear German in me? I think I have a little bit of German in me as well, yeah. I think my father was part German, yes. Although I don't speak I don't speak much German. Or any at all, to be honest. Maybe a few words here and there. Wei Wuxian took a deep breath and raised his foot. But just as he was about to kick the door open, there was a sudden, the sound of footfall on the other side, drawing near. Someone gave the door a kick, which was followed by an annoyed call. Mealtime! While those were the words, it didn't appear the door was going to open at all. Wei Wuxian looked down just in time to see a small bowl he heavily sat down before a small slate at the bottom of the door. The servant outside then added, "Hurry up! What's the hold-up? Put the bowl out when you're done." The slate was smaller than a dog flap, not large enough to allow people to go in and out, but the bowl could be passed through. There were 2 dishes and 1 bowl of rice that looked awfully disgusting. Wei Wuxian bitterly stirred the chopsticks that were stabbed into the rice. Mein Liebe? Liebe? I think it's Mein Liebe? Yeah? And it means my love. Very nice. Alright. The Yiling patriarch had returned to life, only to be kicked down and yelled at. The first meal to welcome him back was cold leftovers. Who would believe him if he told them? What had happened to his body? A bloody rain. His absolute massacres. He had unadulterated annihilation of the sex. Truly, out of the mountains, a tiger had been bullied by a dog. In shallow waters, a dragon can be mocked by a shrimp, and a plucked phoenix is lower than a chicken. Stripped of their privileges, the strong will be belittled by the weak. Yeah, my voice will get like softer because I lose my voice very easily. It's like a thing that I've had since I was young. So so the longer I read out loud, the softer my voice will become because I lose it very quickly. Just then, the voice of servants outside the door was heard once more. But this time, it was a laugh that sounded as if it came from a completely different person. "Ah Ding, come over here." A delicate and frail feminine voice answered from a distance. "Ah Tong, did you come to deliver food for the person in there again?" Ah Tong clicked his tongue. "Why else would I come to this miserable courtyard?" Ah Ding's voice was at the door, much closer now. "You only make deliveries once a day, and no one scolds you, even if you slack off every now and then. So why are you frowning and being so free? Look at me, so busy with errands that I couldn't even go out to play." It's still nice to listen, don't worry. Thank you. I'm trying my best to not choke and die on my own tongue. Odling's voice was at the door, much closer now. "You only make deliveries once a day, and no one scolds you, even if you slack off every now and then. So why are you frowning at being so free? Look at me, so busy with errands that I couldn't even go out to play." Tongues complained. "It's not like delivering meals is the only thing I do, and you still dare go out right now? There were so many walking corpses roaming about that every household has their doors firmly shut. Wei Wuxian was crouched down by the door, pushing around the contents of the bowl in his hand with 2 chopsticks and a different length, listening as he ate. Seemed like things hadn't been peaceful here at the Mo estate. Walking corpses, as per their name, were the walking dead. Reanimated corpses that were low-leveled and commonplace. Their eyes were usually glazed, their movements sluggish. They were fairly harmless. Nonetheless, that was enough to terrify average folk, and their putrid smell alone was enough to make one fill a pot with puke. Oh boy, lovely. However, to Wei Wuxian, they were the easiest to manipulate and the most obedient of puppets. In fact, it even felt somewhat endearing to suddenly hear about them. Atong appeared to have winked. You have to take me along if you want to go out, so I can protect you. Ading cut him off dismissively. You protect me? Please, can you actually fight those creatures off? If I can't fight them off, then no one can, Atang grumbled. Ading laughed. How do you know if other people can't fight them off? Let me tell you. Delegates from cultivation sects have already arrived at the Mo Manor today. I heard they're from an incredibly prominent clan. The madam is receiving them in the main hall right now, this minute. Right this minute. Everyone in the town had gathered to watch. They're all so curious. You hear the noise? You hear that noise? They might order me around again in a bit. I don't have time to play with you. Wei Wuxian listened intently. Sure enough, there was a faint sound of commotion. After a moment, contemplation. He got up and kicked the bar, locking the door, which broke with a crack. The 2 servants, flirting with each other, screamed in surprise when the door was suddenly flung open. Wei Wuxian tossed the bowl and chopsticks aside as he stalked out. But the sunlight blinded him. The glare also caused a small pinching pain on his skin, so he raised his hand to his brow and closed his eyes for a moment. Atong had screamed louder than Ading a moment ago, but when he looked closer, he realized that the lunatic everyone could bully. That it was the lunatic everyone could bully. His courage returned. Feeling he must regain the dignity he just lost, he jumped over and waved, shooting Wei Wuxian like one would a dog. Or shooing, oh my goodness. He yelled, "Get out of here! Shoo! Go back in! What are you doing outside?" Not even beggars or flies could have received more unsightly treatment. This was probably how these servants had treated Mo Xuanyu in the past, and they grew even more impertinent when he didn't retaliate. Wei Wuxian gave Atong a light kick, sending him tumbling and laughing. Who are you trying to humiliate, huh? With that, he headed east, following the noise. Both the East Hall and the East Courtyard were crowded with people, and just as Wei Wuxian stepped into the yard, he had heard a woman's voice rose louder than the others. We have a junior at home who had an affinity for cultivation once. That must have been Madame Mo, who was trying to build connections with the cultivation clans again. Wei Wuxian didn't bother waiting for her to finish before he squeezed through the crowd, entering the main hall. He waved enthusiastically. Here! Here! Over here! In the main seat of the hall sat a middle-aged woman, well-maintained and sumptuously. My goodness, what a nice word. Their adopted son has arrived. Yes, 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 it's time. This was Madame Mo. That one sitting below her was her husband, who had married into the family, and across from him was several White Clan youths with swords on their backs. When a disheveled, unkempt weirdo suddenly emerged from the crowd, conversation came to an abrupt stop. However, Wei Wuxian seemed to take no notice of the frozen atmosphere. He said unabashedly, "Who called me just now? The one with an affinity for cultivation? Isn't that me?" There was too much power on his face, and it cracked when he smiled, flaking as if a powder. Oh my goodness. There's so much powder on his face that it cracked, flaking as it fluttered off. One of the White Clan youths snorted, almost laughing out loud. But he restrained himself when another youth who appeared to be the leader of the bunch shot him a disapproved look. Wei Wuxian snuck a glimpse at them and was somewhat taken aback. At first he had thought an incredible prominent clan was but the exaggerated praise of an unlearned servant. But the people here really were cultivation disciples worth their name. Who would have thought? Graceful sleeved and light, airily sashed, these youths were exceptionally pleasing to the eyes, transcending and poised. Judging by their uniforms alone, it was obvious they came from the Lan clan of Gusu. They were disciples with blood ties to the Lan family as well, since every single one of them who had a 2-centimeter wide white ribbon patterned with rolling clouds tied around their forehead. Elegance and righteousness was the motto of the Lan clan of Gusu, and this forehead ribbon symbolized self-restraint. The rolling clouds were the family's insignia, and guest cultivators or sect disciples of the outside family affiliated with the prominent clan were the only ones allowed to wear the ribbons without the pattern. Wei Wuxian always cringed every time he spotted someone from the Lan family. He often complained under his breath in the previous life that their uniforms looked like funeral clothes. So he knew he wasn't mistaken now. It had been so long since Madame Mo had seen this nephew of hers, and it took a while before he was able to recover from shock. After realizing who this heavily powdered person was, she was furious. But she couldn't lose her composure, so she hissed at her husband. "Who let him out? Get him out of here." Her husband responded with an apologetic smile and got up with a glum look, ready to seize Wei Wuxian. All of a sudden, Wei Wuxian dropped down without warning and latched firmly onto the ground. Immovable, no matter how he was pulled or dragged. Not even the servants who were called to help could do anything. If not the outsiders who were present, they would have started to kick him already. Page flippy time. Madame Mo's face was growing darker and darker, and the husband was drenched in sweat as well. He yelled, "You damn lunatic! If you don't go back right now, be careful, I'll put you in your place." The reason they aren't allowed to drink in Gusu clan is probably because they have low tolerance and lose all their restraint. Is that the chicken scene? Yes, especially Lan Wangji. He yelled. Oh, sorry. Wrong part. Although everyone from the Mo estate knew there was a young master in the Mo family who had gone mad, Mo Shonye had withdrawn into that gloomy house of his for years, afraid to see anyone. Now that they both saw his appearance and his actions resembled those of a raging monster, they had started to whimper among themselves, excited to watch this spectacle unfold. Wei Wuxian spoke up. "I can't go back if you want." He pointed at Mo Jiyuan. But you have to make him return everything he stole from me first. Mo Jiyuan never thought this lunatic would have the gall. He taught the guy a lesson just a day ago, only to have him turn around and expose him here today. His face changed colors as he explained, "You're lying. Since when have I ever stolen anything from you? Why would I need to steal any of your stuff?" Right. Wei Wuxian agreed. "You didn't steal, you snatched." Madame Mo could now tell that Mo Xuanye had obviously come prepared. His mind was perfectly clear, and he was bent on humiliating them. Shocked and livid, she accused him sharply. You fully intend to wreak havoc here today, isn't that right?" Wei Wuxian looked confused. "He stole my stuff, snatched it from me, even. Is asking for it back considered wreaking havoc?" Mo Jiyuan grew agitated, raising his leg to kick Wei Wuxian before Madame Mo could answer. However, one of the sword-carrying white-clad youth moved his finger slightly, and Mo Jiyuan immediately lost his balance. The kick brushed past Wei Wuxian, missing the mark, and the boy tripped over himself. However, Wei Wuxian still stumbled and rolled as if he really had been kicked. He even ripped open his robe, revealing on his chest the footprint left behind by Mo Jiyuan's kicks from the day before. The villagers of Mo State were enjoying the show immensely. Excitement filled the crowd. There was no way Mo Xuanye could have kicked himself to create that footprint, and no matter what, he still had a member of the Mo. He was still a member of the Mo family. What a vicious household! The boy hadn't been this crazy when he first returned, so it was probably the family's doing. Either way, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like they were the only ones being beaten. So as long as they were, as there was a show to watch, all the better. This spectacle was truly more interesting than the arrival of the cultivators. With so many eyes watching, the youth couldn't be beaten and couldn't be kicked out. Madame Mo had no choice but to forcibly smooth the whole debacle over with fury thick in her throat. She said impassively, "What's steal? What's snatched? Such an ugly accusation. We are a family. It's nothing but borrowing. Yuan is your younger brother. So what if he takes a few things of yours? As an elder brother, will you be this stingy? Throwing a childish tantrum and embarrassing everyone over such a small matter. It's not like he wasn't going to return your things." The white-clad youths stared at each other in dismay, and one of them almost choked down his tea. The disciples who grew up with the land clan of Gusu were raised in refined elegance, so they had probably never encountered such a farce nor heard such a brilliance. Today's events were probably widening their horizon. Wei Wuxian laughed maniacally as his mind extended his hand. "Give them back then." Of course, Jiyuan couldn't return things. All the items were long since tossed out and torn apart, and if he couldn't have returned them, and even if he could have returned them, he wouldn't have done so willingly. Red in the face, he cried out in protest, "Mom!" He scowled at her. "Are you going to let him insult me like this?" Madame Mo growled, glowered at him. Glowered. Interesting word. Signaling him that not to make the scene any worse than it was. Unexpectedly, Wei Wuxian spoke up again. While we're on the topic, not only should he not have stolen my stuff, he shouldn't have done it so in the middle of the night. Everyone knows I like men, even if he has no shame. I know not to make myself suspicious. Madame Mo drew a sharp breath and yelled, "What are you spewing in front of the village folks? How shameless! Ah Yuan is your little cousin." When it came to outrageous behavior, Wei Wuxian was an expert. In the past, he had to maintain some form of decorum, so people couldn't accuse him of having poor upbringings. And now he had a lunatic. Now he was a lunatic anyway. So what did he care for shame? He could go wild and cut loose for his heart's content. Gloat is probably the dead-ass stare moms give you when you need to shut up and listen. Yeah, probably. My mother glowers at me all the time then. He stiffened his neck and said outright, he knew he was my little cousin, but he still didn't observe property and keep his distance. So who is more shameless? Who is the more shameless one here? I don't care if I don't care about your reputation, but I still care about mine. I still gotta find a good man. Mo Zizhuan roared, raising a chair to hurl at Wei Wuxian's way. Seeing that he'd finally snapped, Wei Wuxian quickly scrambled up to go hide. That chair broke into pieces upon impact with the ground. The spectators crowded in and out of the East Hall were waiting with unconcealed delight to watch the Mo family be disgraced. But they all quickly dispersed once they got violent, afraid they might be injured. Wei Wuxian ducked toward the youths from the Lan family, who were completely dumbfounded by what was unfolding, crying as he did so. You see? You see? He hit me. He's hitting me. Even though he stole my stuff. How heartless. Mo Ziyuan chased him over, ready to lunge, but the leader of the youth stopped him. This, Gonza, we have talked this out. Oh my goodness. Let me, the book, I lost my page, the book closed on me. How could you, book? How dare you close on me? Alright, where was I? Where was I? Here we are. Mo Ziyuan chased him over, ready to lunge, but the leader of the youth stopped him. This Gonza, we can talk about this. Seeing that the youth intended to protect the lunatic, Madame Mo grew apprehensive. She forced a smile. This young man is my younger sister's son. He's a little unstable here. Everyone at the Mo estate knows he's crazy. He's always saying strange things, so don't take him seriously. Esteemed cultivators, you mustn't... Before she could finish, Wei Wuxian poked his head out from behind the youth. Who said I can't be taken seriously? From now on, if anyone tries to steal my stuff, I'm gonna chop off an arm for every time they do. Just try me. Page 31, thank you. Mo Ziyuan was being held back by his father at first, but when he heard this, his anger flared up again. Wei Wuxian darted out the door like a fish, taunting him with a la 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 as he went out. The youth quickly blocked the door right after and changed the topic, assuming a serious face to talk business. Then we will be borrowing your esteemed West Courtyard for tonight. Please remember exactly what I said earlier. Lock all the doors and shut all the windows tight after dusk. Do not come out if any activities, especially not near the west courtyard. Yes, I shall hydrate now. Thank you. Good water. Good, delicious water. Madame Mo was shaking with rage, but it wouldn't have been so courteous to push the youth aside, despite him blocking her. So she could only reply, yes, yes, thank you, thank you. Mo Ji-yuan was in a state of disbelief. Mom, are you going to let that lunatic get away with slandering me in public? Didn't you say yourself that he was only shut your mouth. Madame Mo cut him off sharply. Can you not wait until we're back inside? Mo Ji-yuan never suffered such a wrong before. Nor had he been humiliated this way. He had especially never been scolded by his mother like this. He cried furiously. That lunatic is dead! After Wei Wuxian was done letting loose, he went out to the main entrance of the manor and strolled around the Mo estate to show his face, scaring numerous passersby, and enjoying himself while he was at it. He began to understand the joy of being a madman, and was even starting to be pleased with the hang ghost makeup, not wanting to wash it off. It's not like there's water around here anyway, so I'll let it be. He fixed his hair and glanced at his wrist. There was no indication the cuts were fading or healing at all, which meant the trifling revenge of venting anger on Mo Xuanyu's behalf, oh my goodness, was far from enough. Did he really have to slaughter the entire Mo family? To be honest, that wouldn't have been anything difficult to do. Wei Wuxian pondered this as he sauntered back to the Mo Manor. He had snuck past the west courtyard with small, quick steps. He noticed the land disciples on the top of the rooftops and wall eaves, gathering in somber discussion. He snuck back again with those small, quick steps and looked up, watching them intently. While the Lan clan of Gusu was a major part of the coalition that had come to besiege him in the past, those juniors hadn't yet been born at the time. Or if they had, would have only been a few years old, so that event had nothing to do with them. Wei Wuxian stood there and observed, wanting to see how they planned on handling the situation. My goodness. As he looked on, he suddenly felt something amiss. Why did those black flags begin flowing on the rooftop and wall eaves look so familiar? The flag was called the Spirit Attraction Flag. If it was stuck on a living person, then it would attract every dark spirit, even every vengeful ghost, every fierce corpse, and all such manner of evil to attack said person. Since wearing a flag was akin to becoming a live target, the flag was also called a target flag. It can also be stuck on a building, but said buildings had to have living persons within, and the range of the targets would increase to include all people within the building. Since yin energy swirled around the area where these flags were planted like a black whirling wind, they also were known as black wind flags. Those youths were setting up the flag's formation and had told others not to go near. So they had to intend to lure the walking corpse here to capture them all at once. Besiege is like attacking someone or their home base, I think. We need a dictionary. I know there were some words that that are a little bit different in here, or some words I've never seen before. All right. As for why the flags looked familiar, how could they not? The creator of the spiritual attraction flag was the very Yiling patriarch. It appeared that, despite how the cultivation world had demanded Wei Wuxian's demise, they nevertheless had no qualms about making use of his inventions. One of the disciples of the rooftops noticed him watching and chided him. "Go back, this is not a place you should be." Though he was being ordered to shoo, it was done with good intentions, and the tone of a voice employed was also greatly different from what those of most servants. While the youth was off his guard, Wei Wuxian hopped up and plucked a flag. Greatly alarmed, the disciple jumped down, and the wall was jumped down the wall to chase after him. "Don't touch that, it's not for you." Oh. Let me just, I need to plug in my phone before it dies, otherwise my model will go bye-bye. Alright. You're probably gonna hear the sound of my computer. Alright. Now, where was I? Wei Wuxian hollered as he ran, looking completely like a lunatic, his hair flying loose and disheveled, arms waving and legs skipping. "Finders keepers, I want this. Mine!" That disciple quickly caught up with him and grabbed his arm. "Give it back, or else I'll hit you." Wei Wuxian clutched the flag tightly, refusing to let go. The leaders of the group was setting up the flag formation was alerted by the commotion, and also came fluttering down from the eaves. "Jingyi, let it go. Retrieve the flag nicely. There is no need to start a dispute." "Shizue, I didn't hit him for real," Lan Jingyi complained. "Look at him. He's messed up the flag formation." During their push and pull, Wei Wuxian had swiftly finished inspecting the spirit attraction flag. The drawn patterns were correct, and none of the spells were missing either. There were no mistakes, so no mishaps could occur in the flag if the flags were used. The only issue was that the person who had drawn the flag was not very experienced, so the spell could only attract any evil and walking corpse within a 2.5 radius at most. But that would be enough. Lan Shizue turned to him with a smile. "Mogonzu, it is getting late, and we'll be starting to catch walking corpses here soon. It is dangerous at night. You best hurry back to your chambers." Wei Wuxian sized up his youth. This youth, my goodness. I guess this is his youth, to be honest. If you know, you know. The boy was gentle in disposition, refined and elegant, noble in the bearing, with a light grin curved the corners on his lips. This was a good sprout, very worthy of encouragement. and Wei Wuxian mentally gave him a nod of approval. The child had set up a flag formation in a proper and orderly manner, and his upbringing really was quite commendable as well. Wei Wuxian wondered who among the terrifying group full of uptight sticks in the mud, known as Lan Clan, had managed to raise such a junior. Lan Shizui added, "This flag." Before he could finish, Wei Wuxian tossed the spiritual attraction flag onto the ground and humped. "What's so good about this crappy flag? I can draw better." He then took off right away. The juniors who were on the rooftop watched the show, bursted out laughing at his shameless declaration so righteously that they almost fell off the roof. Lan Jingyi also laughed in exasperation, then picked up the flag on the ground and dusted it off. "What a lunatic." "Don't say that," Lan Shizui chided him. "Let's go back and help now." As for Wei Wuxian, he wandered idly about for a while. It wasn't until after dark that he returned to Mo Xuanyi's little courtyard. The door latch was snapped. Without someone to clean up the mess, he ignored it and picked up a somewhat clean spot in the room before sitting down and continuing to meditate. First meeting Jen Cheng. "No, I'm not your dead brother." "What are you talking about?" "Hey, why are you grabbing your whip?" Yeah, we're almost there. Just a few more chapters, and he'll finally come. Although I don't know if we're even gonna get that far. Yet unexpectedly, it hadn't reached the morning hours when a noisy commotion outside pulled him out of his meditative state. A clamor of footsteps mixed with wailing and screaming was rapidly approaching, and Wei Wuxian heard these cries repeated. "Break in and drag him out! Report him to the authorities! Who cares about the authorities? Just beat him to death!" He opened his eyes, just a number of servants charged in. The entire courtyard was lit up as bright as day, and someone was shouting, "Drag that murdering lunatic to the main hall and make him pay with his life." Wei Wuxian's first thought, did something go wrong with these youth's flag formation? The smallest carelessness in the usage of the investigations would cause disaster, which was why he had earlier purposely gone to verify whether the spirit attraction flag was properly drawn. Thus, when those large hands came to drag him out the door, Wei Wuxian laid there limply, allowing himself to be dragged out. It saved him the trouble anyway. He was dragged to the East Hall, where it was as lively as could be. Surprisingly, there was no fewer townspeople gathered there than there had been during the day. Many of the servants had close family relations had come. Some still dressed in inner robes, not having had time to coif their hair. Panic painted on each of their faces. Lady Mo sat slumped in her chair, as if she had only just awoken from having fainted. There were traces of tears on the sides of her cheek, the rims of her eyes still wet. However, the moment Wei Wuxian was dragged in, her tears instantly transformed into a baleful glare. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I can definitely feel it. I don't know if you can hear my voice getting like weaker. I've almost drank most of my water already. It's only been about an hour and a half, so we'll see how much longer do we have in this chapter. Ooh, Yeah, we can finish this chapter, and I think that should be good. Because we still have probably a little, about 20 pages to go. And at least we get to see La Magie. Anyway, now's not a time for shrimping. On the ground there laid something that resembled the form of a human. The body was covered by a white sheet, and only its head was exposed. Lan Shizue and the youth were bent down over it, inspecting the body solemnly and whispering to each other. The words filtered into Wu Shen's ears. It hadn't been one instant time since he was discovered. Right after subduing the walking corpses, we were rushed into the east courtyard, and the dead body was laying there in the corridor. This body was Mo Jijuan. Wei Wuxian swept a glance over him, then took another look in spite of himself. This corpse looked like Mo Jijuan, but at the same time not. While the facial features were clearly that of his cheap little cousin. The cheeks were deeply sunken, the eyeballs bulging, and the skin wrinkled. It was as if he had aged 20 years compared to the previous Mo Ji-yuan, who had been in the prime of his youth. It also had seemed as if he had been sucked dry of his blood and flesh. He looked like a mere sack of bones, dressed in extremely thick veil of skin. If it could have been said that the Mo Ji-yuan from before was simply ugly, then this corpse was now old and ugly. Wei Wuxian was just taking a detailed look when Madame Mo suddenly came charging over. Something shining flashed in her hand. She was holding a dagger. Moving as fast as his eyes saw, Lan Shizue knocked it out of her hand. Before he could say anything, Madame Mo was already screaming at him. The picture of Lan she looks so good. Yes, indeed. My son died a tragic death. I need to avenge him. What are you stopping me for? Wei Wuxian once again ducked behind Lan Shizue and shot back. What does your son's tragic death have to do with me? Lan Shizue had watched Wei Wuxian make a scene during the day, then later heard plenty of exaggerated rumors about his illegitimate son from the others. He felt great pity for this mentally ill person and couldn't help but try to speak up for the man. Madame Mo, the state of your son's corpse is clearly the work of evil. Its blood, flesh, spirits, and spirit have been completely sucked out. He could not have been the culprit. Madame Mo's chest heaved. What do you know? This lunatic's father is a cultivator, so he must learn plenty of evil magic. Flippy time? Lan Shizue looked back and took a glance at the seemingly half-witted Wei Wuxian. Madam, there is no evidence, so it is still best. The evidence is on my son's body. Madame Mo pointed at the corpse on the ground. Take a look yourselves. Ah Yuan's dead body had already told me who his murderer is. Without waiting for the others to make a move, Wei Wuxian raced to pull back the sheets from head to toe. Mo Ji-yuan's corpse had something hissing. Or missing. Or was it a different person? Forgot the names. No, Lan Jizue is he's the one standing up for Wei Wuxian right now. He's standing up for his papa. Oh. My apologies, my dog was barking. A common occurrence. Alright. Dog is barking. Also, hello, Rai. Welcome to story time. Alright, where was I? Without waiting for the others to make a move, Wei Wuxian raced to pull back the sheets from head to toe. Ji Yuan's corpse had something missing. His left arm, from the shoulder down, had vanished, as if it had sprouted wings. Madame Mo added, "You see that? You all heard him today, right? What this lunatic said, that if Ah Yuan touched his things again, he would chop off Ah Yuan's arm." After hysterics had settled, she covered her face and sobbed. "My poor Ah Yuan never touched anything of this lunatic's. Not only was he slandered, but he was killed by this maniac." Maniac? It was so endearing. How many years has it been since he had heard himself described as such? Wei Wuxian pointed at himself, but he didn't have the word to rebuke that particular statement. He didn't know either whether he really was mental or if Madame Mo was one of who was ill. After all, he had boasted after slaughtering an entire sect, laying waste to millions, making blood flow like rivers, and others such things when he was younger. But that was all talk, most of the time. If he really could do all that, he wouldn't have tyrannized, there we go, tyrannized the world already. Madame Mo wasn't trying to avenge her son at all. She was only looking for someone to vent her anger on. Wei Wuxian didn't want to bother her. After a moment of thought, he reached into Ji Yuan's robe and searched, finally digging something out. When he unfolded that something, it was a spirit attraction flag. In that instant, it dawned on him. He muttered under his breath. Mo Yixuan brought this upon himself. When Lan Jizue and the others saw the item taken out of Mo Yixuan's robe, they all understood what had happened. Thinking back at the farce that had taken place during the day, it wasn't hard to deduct what had transpired. Earlier, Mo Yixuan's had lost considerable face due to Mo Xuanyu's hysterics, filling him with hatred. He had a mind to settle scores. But Mo Xuanyu's had gone out of frolicking, nowhere to be found. So Mo Yixuan's intended to wait until nighttime to teach Mo Xuanyu an underhanded lesson. Let me grab another drink. I can feel my tongue getting dry. Yet when night came, he snuck out the door. As he passed by the west courtyard, he saw the spirit attraction flag planted atop the wall's eaves. While there were strict instructions against outings at night, and that the west courtyard was forbidden, and that those black flags were not to be touched under any circumstances, Mo Yixuan thought that there was the cultivators purposely scaring people off because they were afraid of others stealing their precious spiritual weapons. He was unaware of just how dangerous and ominous the effects of the spiritual attraction flag were. and that once held, a flag would make the barrier a living target. Mo Jiyuan's hands had never been clean. He'd grown addicted to stealing the talismans and spiritual tools belonging to his crazy older cousin. When he saw the magical objects, he couldn't help but feel the itch to take them for himself, no matter the cost. Thus, while the owners of the flags were subduing walking corpses in the west courtyard, he secretly plucked away one. The flag formation utilized 6 spirit attraction flags, 5 of which were set up in the west courtyard, using those youths from the Lan. Flipping the page. From the Lan family as bait. However, they themselves were protected by the countless spiritual tools carried on their persons. Although Mo Jiyuan had only stolen 1 flag, he didn't have any protective tools on him. Go after the weakest, as they say. Spiritually, the evil spirits were lured to him. If it had only been walking corpses, then it wouldn't have been a big deal. At most, he'd been bitten a couple of times. It wouldn't have resulted in his death. There would still have been a chance to save him. Yet, it just so happened that the spirit attraction flag had unintentionally summoned something more terrifying than walking corpses. And it was precisely this unknowing evil spirit that had killed Mo Jiyuan and robbed him of his arm. Wei Wuxian raised his wrist. Sure enough, a cut on his left arm, had healed. It seemed the sacrificial ritual had acknowledged Mo Jiyuan's death as his doing. After all, the spiritual attraction flag was Wei Wuxian's invention, so he'd hit the mark out of pure luck. Madame Mo was perfectly aware of her son's little flaws, but she would never admit Mo Jiyuan had caused his own death. Anxious and agitated, she picked up a teacup and hurled it at Wei Wuxian's face. If you hadn't made such a scene and framed him in front of so many people yesterday, would he have gone out in the middle of the night? It's all your fault, you bastard. Wei Wuxian was already prepared and sidestepped to dodge the attack. Madame Mo then screamed at Lan Shizue. And you bunch of useless fools. What cultivators are you? What evil can you exercise? You can't even protect a child. Ah, Yuan is so young. Those youths were still green and only had such experience under their belt. They hadn't detected anything unusual in the area, which is why they never thought there'd be a ferocious evil. At first, they'd been quite sorry because they felt themselves lacking. But after Madame Mo indiscriminate tongue lashing, they were growing upset. After all, they came from a distinguished clan. No one had ever dared to treat them this way. The teachings of Lang Clan of Gusu were extremely strict. They forbid raising a hand against normal folk, and not even rudeness was allowed. Even though they were irritated, they had to force it down, causing dark expressions to cloud their face. Wei Wuxian couldn't take it anymore. He thought, after so many years, the Lan family still acts this way. What's the use of all that self-restraint unless you're looking to suffocate yourselves? Watch me. He spat loudly. Who do you think you're yelling at? Do you really take them to be your servants? They came all this way to exercise evil for free, and now they owe you? How old is your son again? At least 17, right? Oh, my dogs. Those 30,000 goddamn rules, yeah. I think there's like 4,000 now. Alright. My dog wants to be in the stream, like always. Alright, here. Let's see. Alright. How old is your son again? At least 17, right? A child still. How old do you have to be to understand human words? Do they not instruct us, did they not instruct us again and again yesterday not to go around the west courtyard? Not to touch anything in the formation? Your son snuck out in the middle of the night to dally about. Is that my fault? Or is it his fault? Lan Jingyi and the others let out a breath, no longer looking as upset. My goodness. Alright. Where was I? Lan Jingyi and the others let out a breath, no longer looking as upset. Madame Mo was both extremely sad and resentful, and her mind was filled with nothing but thoughts of death. More specifically, it was thoughts of herself dying to accompany her son, but rather thoughts of having everyone in the world die, especially the ones currently in front of her. Whenever something happened, she always ordered her husband around, so she shoved him. Call everyone in. Call everyone in here. However, her husband was in a daze. Perhaps the shock of the death of his son was too great. But he shoved her back, knocking down to the ground so abruptly, Madame Mo was stunned. If this had been before, Madame Mo needn't have pushed him. As long as she raised her voice a tiny bit, he'd do whatever she said, yet today he dared fight back. The servants were all terrified by her expression, and trembling, and the trembling Ah Ding helped her stand. Madame Mo grabbed her heart and said with a shaky voice, You get lost too. Her husband seemed not to be to have heard. Ah Ding shot at Ah Tong a number of looks, and Ah Tong quickly dragged his master out. It was chaos within the East Hall. Seeing how the family was finally quieting down, Wei Wuxian was to inspect the corpse further. Whether he had barely glanced at it before another high-pitched scream pierced through the door. The crowd inside the hall poured out and were greeted with the sight of two bodies spasming on the ground in the east courtyard. One was slumped Atong alive, the other was collapsed on the ground. Its body wrinkled and withered, as if the blood and flesh had been completely sucked dry. Its left arm was already gone, and there was no blood flowing from the wound. They all got the arm infection. The state of the corpse was exactly the same as Mo Jiyuan's. Madame Mo had just shaken off Ah Ding's support hand. When she saw the corpse laying on the ground, she was stunned in place. At last, exhausted of the energy to throw more fits, she fainted. Wei Wuxian happened to be standing next to her, or near her, so he caught her and passed her to Ah Ding as she came running over. He then took a glance at his right hand. A cut there was gone as well. Madame Mo's husband had only stepped out onto the threshold of the hall. He hadn't even entered the yard before he died tragically on the spot. Everything had happened within an instant. Lan Shizui, Lan Jingyi, and others paled, but Lan Shizui had the first to compose himself. He questioned the slumped Atong. You're awake, Leaf? Welcome, welcome. My goodness, it must be very late for you now. Did you see what it was? Atong was thoroughly horrified. His teeth clenched so hard that he couldn't utter a word, for the moment only shaking his head. Lan Shizue burned with impatience, instructed his peers to bring the boy inside before he turned to Lan Jingyi. Did you fire the signals? I did, Lan Jingyi replied, but if there were no seniors nearby, who can come to offer assistance? I know who can. Our people will probably take at least an hour before they can make it here. What do? We don't even know what it is right now. My goodness, it's so late for everyone. It was, of course, impossible for them to leave. If a clan's disciples only cared about escaping when running into evil spirits, then not only would they embarrass the clan, but they themselves would be too ashamed to go out again. The terrified folk of the Mo household could not leave with them either. The evil spirit was most likely among them, so it would have been useless if they fled. Lan Shizue clenched his teeth. Stay on guard until help arrives. Since the distress signal was already fired, other cultivators would soon come to the raid. In order to avoid adding to the present trouble, by all accounts, Wei Wuxian should have retreated. Best if whoever came was no one he knew. If it was someone he had crossed paths with before and had fought with, then it was hard to tell what would happen. With the sacrificial rituals curse on him, he could not leave the Mo estate yet. Besides, if the summoned creature could take 2 lives within such a short span of time, then it was probably abnormally ferocious. If Wei Wuxian dropped everything and left, then by the time reinforcements arrived, the entire Mo estate would have its streets filled with corpses missing their left arm. And surely, some of those corpses would include the family disciples of the Lan clan of Gusu. Flippy time. After a moment's deliberation, Wei Wuxian said to himself, "Let's end this quickly." Those youths were fledglings. Each of them looks nervous. Despite that, they still scrumptiously... scrumptiously? They still they still scrumptiously took their places to protect the Mo Manor and stuck talismans inside and outside of the hall. The servant Atang had already been carried out inside, and Lan Shizue checked his pulse with his left hand, while his right massaged Madame Mo's back. He couldn't treat both at once, and was in a sorry dilemma when suddenly Atang crawled up from the ground. Atang exclaimed, "Atang, you're awake!" It's scrumptiously. I like scrumptiously. Where was I? I got distracted. Before any delay could cross her face, Atang raised his left hand and seized his own neck. Seeing this, Lan Shizue targeted several of Atang's acupoints with a triple tap of his hand apiece. Wei Wuxian knew that while the Lang clan appeared gentle on the surface, their arm strength was not gentle in the least. Using that method, anyone could be rendered thoroughly unable to move. However, Atang appeared not to have felt a thing. His left hand gripped harder and harder. His face scrunched more and more with pain. Lan Jingyi went over to pull his left hand, but it was like trying to break off a chunk of iron, immovable. Moments later, a crack. Atang's head drooped down, and the only thing, and only then did the hand let go. But his neck was already broken. He had actually strangled himself before the eyes of all. Seeing this, Ading's voice trembled. A ghost! This was invisible. There's an invisible ghost here, and it made Atang strangle himself. Her voice was shrill and sad, raising hairs on everyone's neck. They all believed her. Wei Wuxian determined to be the exact opposite. However, there was a malicious ghost. There wasn't a malicious ghost, sorry. He had seen the talisman those young youths had chosen, and they were the spirit-repelling type. They had plastered the entire East Hall with them, airtight. If this really was a malicious spirit, then those talismans would have immediately burned with a green flame when entering the East Hall. Things would not be quite as they were now. It wasn't that this group of youths was slow to react. It was that the intruder was truly ferocious in nature. The cultivation sect had strict criteria for determining whether something was a malicious ghost. One was considered such if it killed once a month for up to 3 months consecutively. This was a criterion Wei Wuxian himself had set, and it was possibly still in use now. Dealing with this type was his specialty, and based on what they'd seen, killing once every 7 days would make this creature a malicious ghost that caused particularly frequent mischief. However, this thing had just killed 3 times in a row, in a short time span too. Even accomplished cultivators could have been hard-pressed to come up with counter-strategy. Strategy. See, some words I can't even pronounce because of my being tongue-tied. It takes so long for me to pronounce words. Never mind those novice juniors. Just as he was thinking this, the firelight flashed. A blast of sinister wind whipped by, and every lantern and every candle in the entire courtyard, including the East Hall, was extinguished. Screams erupted in the instant the lights went out. The man and women pushed and shoved, falling and fleeing. Lan Jingyi shouted, "Stay where you are. Don't run. We'll arrest whoever runs." Dang. Those were not words spoken without reason. Wreaking havoc in the dark and taking advantage of confusion was the nature of evil spirits. The more the people screamed and ran amok, the easier it would be to attract trouble unknowingly. It was extremely dangerous to be left alone or to lose one's head at a time like this. And yet, it could not be helped that everyone was scared out of their wits. So how could they possibly pay attention? Pay attention to and heed instruction. It didn't take long before the East Hall fell quiet, with only the sound of light breaths and faint sniffling. Most had probably left. The arm parasite. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. In the darkness, a firelight suddenly flared. It was Lan Shizue, and had lit an illumination talisman. The flames of the illumination talisman could not be extinguished by the sinister wind that carried evil, and he used this talisman to relight the candles anew, while the rest of the youths went around to console the others. Under the light, Wei Wuxian took a nonchalant glance at his wrists. Another cut had healed. It was then that he suddenly realized the number of cults were wrong. Cuts. I keep saying cults. The number of cuts were wrong. There had been 2 cuts on his left wrist and 2 on his right. One cut healed after Mo Jiwan's death. Another cut healed after the death of Mo Jiwan's father. And the third after the death of a servant Atong. Tallying that up, there would have been 3 healed cuts, leaving only the cut with the deepest wound on the deepest, with the deepest hatred. But now there was nothing on his wrists. Not a single cut was left. Wei Wuxian trusted that Madame Mo was most definitely among those whom Mo Xuanyu wished to seek revenge upon. The longest of the deepest gash was likely for her, yet it had surprisingly vanished. Was Mo Xuanyu, who had suddenly let it go and abandoned his hatred? That was impossible. His soul had been sacrificed as the price of summoning Wei Wuxian. In order for the cut to heal, Madame Mo had to die, unless... My glasses are falling down. He had slowly moved his gaze from his wrist to Madame Mo, who had recently roused and suddenly and was surrounded by the crowd. Her face was white as a sheet. Unless she was already dead. Wei Wuxian was sure something had already possessed Madame Mo. If that thing was not a spirit, then what could it be? Suddenly, Ding cried, "Hand! Hand! Atong's left arm!" Lan Shizue moved the illumination talisman over Atong's corpse. Sure enough, his left arm had also vanished. The left arm! In that flash of a second, everything was clear. The creature causing mischief and vanishing left arms formed a connection that clicked in Wei Wuxian's mind. He suddenly snorted and bursted out laughing. Lan Jingyi huffed. That dummy! How could he laugh at a time like this? But then he realized that, given the man was a dummy, what was the point of bothering with him in the first place? However, Wei Wuxian grabbed Lan Jingyi's sleeve and shook his head. No. Lan Jingyi irritably tried to pull his sleeve back. No what? Not a dummy? Stop playing around. No one's got time for you. Wei Wuxian pointed at Father Mo and Atong's corpse on the ground. That's not them. Lan Shizue stopped Lan Jingyi, who was about to blow up. He asked, "You said that's not them. What do you mean?" Wei Wuxian replied solemnly, "This isn't Mo Jiyuan's dad, and that's not Atong either." With his face smeared in makeup, the more solemn he was, the more it felt like he really was mentally ill. However, under the haunting candlelight, his words were surprisingly hair-raising. Shizue was stunned for a moment, then questioned him in spite of himself. "What is that?" Wei Wuxian said smugly, "Because of the hand." They're not left-handed. They always beat me with their right hand. I know that much at least. Lan Jingyi lost his patience and spat. What are you so smug for? Look at that pleased face. Lan Shizue, however, had broke out in a cold sweat from the shock. Thinking back, Antong had strangled himself using his left hand, and then Madame Mo's husband pushed his wife down. He also had used his left hand. But during the day when Mo Xuanyi had been causing a ruckus in the East Hall, those who had been busy trying to chase him out using their habitual right hands. Surely they couldn't both then turned into left-handers all of a sudden, right before their deaths. Although the cause was persistently unknown, in order to investigate what was causing mischief, they had to start with those left arms. Having come to the conclusion, Lan Shizue had a bewildering look at Wei Wuxian. Despite himself, he thought, for him to suddenly say something like that, really, doesn't seem like a coincidence. Wei Wuxian only continued to laugh cheekily, knowing that he had hinted that the hint had been too conspicuous. But there was no other way. Thankfully, Lan Shizue didn't dig into that, thinking, either way, since Mo Gonzo was willing to call attention to it for me, it most likely wasn't done out of ill intent. Let me grab my drink again. My goodness. Very good. My nails have been growing out. Now I can do tappy stuff. My nails are getting long. You've had a hard day at work today. Well, I hope you can now relax now that you're hopefully done. He moved his gaze from Wei Wuxian, swept it over Ah Ding, who had fainted from weeping, and landed his eyes on Madame Mo. His eyes traveled down from her face to her hands. Her arms were dangling by her sides, mostly hidden in the sleeves, revealing only the tips of her fingers. The fingers of her hands were snow white and slim, truly the hands of a woman who lived in privilege, without the hardship of labor. However, the fingers of her left hand were longer and thicker than those on the right. The knuckles were curled, filled with strength. How was the hand of a woman? It was clearly the hand of a man. Hold her down, Lan Shizue shouted. The youth had already twisted Madame Mo's arm back in a hold. With a forgive me, Lan Shizue pulled out a talisman. He was ready to slap it down on Madame Mo's left arm. When Madame Mo's left arm twisted in an impossible angle and aimed for his throat. The only way for a living human to twist their arm that way would be if their bones were broken. The hand's movement was fast, and it would have seized his neck had it not been for Lan Jingyi tackling Lan Shizue with a loud "Gah!" and blocking the attack from him. There was a flash of firelight. That hand had only just grabbed Lan Jingyi's shoulder when green flames flared to life at the same spot. It instantly loosened its grip. Having escaped death, Lan Shizue was just about to thank Lan Jingyi for coming to his rescue when he saw that half of Lan Jingyi's uniform had been burnt to ashes, making him look incredibly unkempt. My goodness. It's 2 a.m. and the shift ended at 7. My goodness. Flustered and enraged, Lan Jingyi stripped off the abundant half of his uniform as he looked back and yelled, "Why did you kick me, stupid lunatic? Did you want me killed?" Wei Wuxian scurried away, hugging his head. It wasn't me. It was most certainly he who had kicked Lan Jingyi. The other robe of the Lan family uniform was tightly embroidered with spells and incantations inside its lining to provide protection. However, the effects would have been nullified after one use when encountering a formidable creature such as this. Under these dire circumstances, Wei Wuxian could only give Lan Jingyi a kick to make him use his body to shield Lan Jingyi, Shizue's neck. Your shift started at 7 a.m. My goodness. Moly moly. You've been up for a while. Lan Jingyi was going to yell some more, but Madame Mo collapsed to the ground. The flash of blood on her face was the flesh and blood of her face had been drained so utterly that only a layer of skin pressed against her skull remained. The man's arm that did not belong to her fell off her left shoulder, yet its fingers could still move as it willed. It was as if it was stretching, the pulsing of the veins clearly visible. That thing was the evil that had been summoned by the spirit attraction flag. You have a 24-hour shift? Holy. Didn't know those things were a thing. Dismemberment was a standard violent death. It was a little more dignified than the way Wei Wuxian had died, though not by much. Unlike being crushed to ashes, the limbs of a dismembered corpse retained a part of the grudges of the deceased. One could yearn to return to his body, yearn to die a complete corpse. Thus it was only... wait a minute. Thus, it would only also attempt to seek out the other parts of his body. Once found, the corpse would then perhaps rest in peace, satisfaction, or perhaps wreak havoc, a greater havoc. If the rest of the original body wasn't found, however, a limb could only go for the second best option. What was the second best option? Making sure my dog doesn't bark. What was the second best option? Seek out the bodies of living humans and make do? Just as this left arm had demonstrated. Devour the left arm of the living, take its place, and suck out the living human spirit, blood, and flesh. Then abandon the body to continue searching for the next host. This would continue until all parts of his original corpse were found. Once this arm attached itself to a body, it was instant death for the host. Though prior to the blood and flesh being completely eaten, the human could still move normally under the arm's control, as if it's still alive. After the arm had been summoned, the first vessel it found was Mo Yijuan. Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. The second vessel was Mo Jiyuan's father. When Madame Mo had told her husband to get lost, he acted out of character and pushed her. At first, Wei Wuxian had thought it was because the man was heartbroken, because of his son's death, and that he had also had enough of his wife's unreasonable behavior. In retrospect, that had not been the demeanor of a father who had just lost his son. That had not been the stupor of despair. It had been stillness, the stillness of the dead. The third vessel was Atong, and the fourth was Madame Mo. The left arm took advantage of the chaos when the lights went out earlier, to migrate to her body. And when Madame Mo was killed, the last cut on Wei Wuxian's wrist had also vanished with her demise. Seeing how the talismans were useless, but the clothes were not, all the Lan youths each stripped off their outer robes and threw them on the left arm, covering and wrapping it in layers upon layers of robes like a thick white cocoon. A moment later, this ball of white clothes ignited with a whoosh. The wicked green flames blazed to the sky. Though it worked for the time being, it would not last long. Once the uniforms were completely burned, that arm would break free from their ashes. While no one was paying attention, Wei Wuxian ran straight for the west courtyard. Over a dozen walking corpses those youths had captured were standing silently in the yard. A spell had been drawn upon the ground to seal them inside its boundary, and Wei Wuxian stomped on one of the characters, destroying the entire array. After 2 claps, the walking corpses jerked. Their white eyes opened abruptly as if they had been shocked awake by the explosion of thunder. "Wake up," Wei Wuxian said. "Time to get to work." He never needed any complicated spells or summoning incantations to control corpse puppets. Those most straightforward command would suffice. The walking corpses at the very front quivered as they struggled to shuffle a few steps. Then, the moments they approached. It's flippy time. You just arrived and you already fell in love with your voice. It's so beautiful. Oh, thank you. It's a little bit hoarse right now, because I've been reading for a little over 2 hours, so I start to lose my voice. So it gets softer with time. But thank you so much. Let me grab another drink. Alright, then the moment they approached Wei Wuxian, they fell face first to the ground like living humans, as if their legs had grown weak from terror. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry at this, Wei Wuxian clapped twice more, but much softer this time. However, these walking corpses had probably been born at the Mo estate and had died here as well. They'd never seen the world. So while they instinctively obeyed the summoner's commands, they were also terrified of the summoner for some reason, lying on the ground whimpering, too afraid to get up. The crueler the evil spirit, the easier it was for Wei Wuxian to manipulate it. These walking corpses have never gone through his training, so they could not withstand his direct control. He had no material at his disposal to immediately create a device that could ease their fear with either, and nothing with which to improvise. As he watched the blazing green flames from the east courtyard gradually die down, the idea suddenly came to mind. Why go out searching to find a cruel and vicious deceased, one steeped in extreme hatred? The East Hall already had one. More than one. He darted back to the east courtyard. Lan Shizui's first plan had come to an end, so he devised another. The youths all unsheathed their longswords, planting them into the ground to form a fence of blades. The ghost arms smashed about within the enclosure. It was taking all the energy just to hold the hilts in place and prevent them from being expelled by the force. No one had the time to pay attention to who was going in and out of the hall. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I've been taking my drinking breaks. We're almost done though. I'm gonna end it soon because we're almost done chapter 2, and I think that's as much as my voice can handle. Probably gonna go eat some ice cream after or something. I'm practically drank through my entire water bottle. Now, where was I? Wei Wuxian stepped into the East Hall and yanked up the corpse of Madame Mo and Mo Zhiyuan, one in each hand. In a low voice, he gave a command. Awake yet? At the sound of this voice, the souls returned. An instant later, Madame Mo and Ji Yuan opened their white eyes and let out a shrill shriek, unique to malicious ghosts, as the moment of their resurrection. Yes, it's almost Lan Wangji time. Lanor Guga. Amidst the high and low shrieks, another corpse crawled into its feet in trepidation, calling out feebly with a voice that could not have been any softer. It was Madame Mo's husband. The cries were loud enough and hatred plentiful. Wei Wuxian was extremely pleased. Recognize that arm out there? He smiled. Tear it apart. He ordered. The 3 members of the Mo family were like 3 blasts of black wind, blowing forth in an instant. That left arm had broken a longsword. Just as it was about to break out of the pen, 3 left armless, fierce corpses came lunging at it. Even aside from the fear of disobeying Wei Wuxian's command, these 3 carried an intense hatred for the creatures that have killed them, and they unleashed all their fury upon the ghost arm. The one leading the attack was undoubtedly Madame Mo. Once reanimated, female corpses were often particularly ferocious. Her hair was flying wild, her white eyes crawling with red, and her nails had burst into length exponentially. She was foaming at the mouth, her shrill cries practically raising the roof, completely crazed. Mo Zhiyuan followed his mother closely, working in concert with her to both tear and bite at the left arm, while his father trailed behind him, filling in the gaps between the other 2 attacks. The Lan youth had been struggling to hang in there once all stunned. They had only ever heard of such fights between fierce corpses from I had to flip the page again. Fierce corpses from sun-dry books and hearsay. This was the first time they had witnessed such a gory scene, and they gawked, unable to avert their eyes. They only had one thought in their minds. This was so exciting. The 3 corpses on the one arm were in the throes of battle. Suddenly, Mo Zhiyuan's shrieks as he dodged. That arm had swiped at his abdomen, and several ropes of his intestines drooped from the tear. Madame Mo snarled intensely, or incessantly. At the sight of this, she pulled her son behind her to shield him, while escalating her attacks, her nails slicing through air as sharply as blades made of iron and steel. However, Wei Wuxian could tell she was slowly losing against the arm. Even 3 freshly dead fierce corpses working together could not subdue this one arm. Wei Wuxian watched the battle closely. He curled his tongue slightly, holding a sharp whistle back between his lips as he hesitated to let it loose. It was, if he whistled, he could evoke greater hatred within the controlled fierce corpses. and that would perhaps turn the tables. However, it would be difficult to ensure no one noticed that he was the instigator. Rest well after your reading. It will stop writing. I will start writing. Just listen to your beautiful voice. Yes, I'm gonna have a good night's rest, thinking about my favorite book, my favorite characters. Thank you. Thank you for listening. In the span of a second, the hands moved as fast as lightning, ruthless and precise as it snapped Madame Mo's neck. Seeing how the Mo family was being steadily beaten back, Wei Wuxian was just about to lose the whistling he held under his tongue when right then, two strums of a guqing sounded in the far distance. We know what time it is. The two notes were skillfully played, ethereal and clear, carrying with them the trickling obliqueness of windswept pipes. The collection of demonic evils that were in the middle of the brawl all froze. The use of Lang Clan of Gusu immediately beamed, as if they had been resurrected. Lan Shizui raised a hand to wipe away the blood on his face and then looked up, calling out in delight, "Hong Wen-jin!" The moment he heard the cry of the Sabri... What? What's Sabriket? What is this word? And the distant Guqing, Wei Wuxian turned to leave. Another strum. This time the note was higher pitched, piercing through the sky like the austere harshness of winter's first approach. The three fierce corpses shrank back while covering one ear with the right hand, at the same time. However, it was impossible to block out the eradication tone of the Lan clan of Gusu in such a way. They only managed to back up a few steps before there was faint sounds of crackling in their skull. As for the left arm, after engaging in such ferocious fights, hearing the sounds of strings now made it suddenly drop to the ground. Though its fingers still twitched, the arm was already lying limp and silent. After a short silence, the ground of youths could help but erupt in loud cheers. The sound filled the jubilation of having survived. They had endured a terrifying night, and now that help from the clan had finally arrived. They could have cared less if they were harshly punished later for disgracing the sect with a breach of etiquette. While they waved together the moon, While they waved toward the moon, Lan Shizui suddenly noticed something missing. He tugged at Lan Jingyi. "Where is he?" Lan Jingyi was busy being happy and replied, "Who? Who's he?" "That Mogonzer," Lan Shizui replied. "Huh? Are you looking for that lunatic? Who knows? Maybe he was scared off by getting beaten up by me and ran away somewhere." Lan Shizui knew that Lan Jingyi was unmindful and straightforward, not thinking deeply on things or harboring suspicion. He thought to himself, "I'll just wait until Hong Wen-jin is down here, then report to him about that man and the incident." Mo Estates slumbered soundly, though whether that piece was real or fake was difficult to tell. Even though there had been a bloody corpse fight in Mo Manor East and West Courtyard, no one was getting up in the middle of the night to watch it. One had to pick and choose the right spectacle to watch, and a spectacle with such insensate screaming was best avoided. Wei Wuxian rapidly destroyed remaining evidence of the sacrificial ritual array, then ran out the door. Of all people who could have come by, it had to be the Land family. And of all people to come, it just had to be Lan Wangji. This was someone whom he had once crossed paths with and fought. So he retreated in a hurry, anxious to find his steed. As he passed by a courtyard, he noticed a spotted donkey tied next to a large millstone, chewing something in its mouth. It seemed a little surprised when it saw him come dashing over, giving him a side eye like a person would. Little Apple is like bombastic side eye. The instant Wei Wuxian met its eyes, he was immediately moved by the disdain in its gaze. He went up to it, yanked it off its rope, and started dragging it out. The spotted donkey loudly complained. Wei Wuxian cajoled as he dragged, coaxing it in every way possible to move it along. Stepping out in the light of dawn, they clattered onto the main road. Yes, there we go. Little Apple has appeared. We've got Lan Wangji has appeared. Wei Wuxian. Perfect. Alrighty. So that was chapter 2. Where's my Modal Zushi bookmark? All right. I have it right here. Well, yeah. All right. So it has been 2 hours and 40 minutes. Holy moly. But I think that is all my voice can take for now. This chapter 1 and 2. But it's a good introduction to Modal Zushi. And I just finished my water. Yeah. All right. So that there is my favorite novel, at least the beginning of it. I hope you enjoyed, and if you've never read Modal Zushi before, I highly suggest doing so. Even if you don't like reading, there's the comic, there's the animation, there's even a live drama. There's also the audio. There's an audio drama as well. But if you don't know Mandarin, then you're gonna have to read the subtitles anyway, but... Alright. But that's enough for me, because my throat is dying, and I have a stream tomorrow. But I hope you did enjoy, and I hope you liked what I read you. My apologies if I stutter a lot when I'm reading. That's a normal occurrence. Alright. I'm gonna pack it up now. Thank you so much for watching. I don't usually do ASMR or reading like this. This is my first reading stream. So we're kind of testing it out. We're testing the waters, you know? But I was thinking maybe I could do other reading streams. We could do like manga streams, or maybe like a hand cam manga stream, so you can see the actual pictures. That would be fun as well. But yes, I know it's late for a lot of you, so I'm gonna head off now. If you'd like, you can follow me on my socials at ShimizuDexx. I usually play a lot of horror games. That's usually my thing. Not so much reading and doing soft stuff. I'm usually running around and screaming. This is a nice change of pace, you know? Thank you so much for the stream. It's a little difficult finding Modal Zushi, or MXTX fans in the wild. So I'm extremely happy right now. Take care and have a good evening. Please continue this if you wouldn't mind finishing the whole book while you read. My goodness, it's a long story. But we can definitely go back. But it's a long story for I guess someone like me whose voice dies very quickly. So it will take a very long time to read through all 5 volumes. Holy moly. But if you want to read, you can also read it on your own as well. I highly suggest. I love this story so much. I cannot stress enough. It took over my life. It honestly did. I can't get enough. But yeah. All right. And you can also join the Discord as well if you'd like for more updates and just chatting with the rest of us, yeah? Let me put this book away. If it will. No? My book doesn't want to go away. Oh, there we go. You have patience, yeah. It'll be a year-long series. It's how long will it take Dex to finish Mobile Sushi? Alright. But I definitely want to do a more ASMR. Maybe I'll get like a special ASMR mic. So it'll be more like ASMR-y, you know? Because right now I'm just on my regular microphone. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I love going back and like reading Mobile Sushi. I feel like I know this story like front to back, like off by heart. If anyone asked, I could probably tell you exactly what happens the whole book through. But yeah, all right. Let's put on my nice. I had this ambient Mobile Sushi kind of OST that I was playing in the beginning. I really like it. Sometimes I listen to it when I'm going to sleep. But we'll use it as a goodbye song, yeah? Yeah, let's slowly change back. Yeah, this part here is my absolute favorite. Let me see if I can find it. This song here is one of my absolute favorites. This is from the drama, I believe, the actual Mobile Sushi drama, the Untamed, the live drama. I love this song. It's one of my absolute favorites. All right, enjoy. Have a good rest of your night. And I will see you tomorrow for a spooky stream. We'll be playing some spooky games. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good rest of your night.